Welcome back, everybody. Here we are. It's been far too long since I have recorded or posted any videos on any sort of even halfway remotely serious regular basis. Um, and I started playing chess again recently, partially because of the 2018 World Championships that happened about a month or so ago. Kind of got the juices flowing a little bit. Part of it was just needed something new to do. There hasn't really been too many games coming out recently that I've been super occupied with, and I haven't had nearly as much free time as before either. So I've kind of picked chess back up a little bit, and now that it's been getting more fun, I've been doing a lot of studying and trying to get better and improve my game. I thought maybe I should go back to posting it like I used to. It seemed to be fairly well received on the channel. The first time that we did chess videos here, a lot of it was more trying to help out me just as much as you guys, like a cooperative kind of learning thing as we went through chess and learned and progressed, kind of as a team, having different sets of eyes kind of look at the same things and, just try and be a big helpful community with that. At the time, I was kind of focusing a lot on like opening sequences and playing the right moves, and I wanted to make sure that every move I did was purposeful, that I was making some sort of attack or counterattack with everything that I did, and that was really my main focus back then. But I didn't necessarily know what that meant, and I found that a lot of times I got put into positions where sometimes really good things would happen, and it was like, wow, that actually looks like I knew what I was doing, but really I had no idea, and stuff just kind of fell together in pieces because I didn't really understand why what I was doing may or may not have been good. So I've been trying lately to focus a lot more on like pawn structures and what does that foundation mean, and focusing on my opponent's squares in terms of like what's weak, what's a good place where if I put my pieces that they're going to be really strong or have a lot of extra potential. Every time you move a piece, there's something is gained and something is lost. There's a plus and a minus to everything. So I want to focus more on stuff like that, and unprotected pieces. I want to put more pressure on them and find different combination squares where your pieces, you want to have them work together like as a team, as opposed to just throwing stuff all over the place. So kind of a bunch of little things that I wanted to focus on as I started playing more games. And like I said in the previous series of videos, like by no means would I ever say that I'm super good or like I'm a master or anything like that. So these videos are just as much for me as everybody else out there, because there's some amazing players on the internet, and hopefully some of you guys on the channel are still good and still learning, and it can just help open up that dialogue. So with this first introductory video, I kind of just wanted to talk about what my goals are with that. Those are how I want to kind of approach the videos, maybe even do like the analysis a little bit different. I think before in the past, I did the analysis like, okay, here's the position, and we can do this and this and this, and here's why, and here's what I chose. And I think this time I'd rather take a different approach and go through the whole game as a start. And then once it's over, we can go back and look at where could things have gone differently instead. So I'm thinking of doing a slight change in that regard in terms of how we go about these videos, and kind of what my goals are as far as what I'm working on personally to try and improve. So it should be a little bit different. I do think I've learned a lot, and I think I'm a better player now than I was a couple years ago. I might not have as much memorized in terms of openings and stuff like that, but I think my understanding and knowledge of the game for why I want to do things and why this worked is helping me see things a little bit better. I don't think I'm nearly as good at defense as I used to be. I'm kind of falling behind in watching what my opponent's threats are, but at least if I'm putting good offense out there and playing sound position and understanding the structures and the square strengths and weaknesses a little bit better, I'm at least doing all right. So this board right here happened to just be the daily puzzle on Lichess for today. That's all it was. Most of them are usually you have to pick forced moves. So that was just sitting here. Don't pay attention to what this board was. Checkmate. Ta-da! So in terms of just not having a single... Sorry, there's a fly that's buzzing around my... Oh, shit! I actually got it. Hell yeah! In terms of not just having like a random introductory video saying like, hey guys, we're going to post things again. I wanted to showcase just a couple of really quick games so that there's at least some substance for you guys listening to me talk for a few minutes, and kind of break the ice a little bit in terms of getting comfortable and used to talking to a computer again, because it's been so long. Getting used to moving pieces and seeing how all the buttons work, and just kind of breaking out that dialogue, see how many people are still left. And if there's only like 35 views and 6 comments, I mean, that ratio is not bad, but if there's just not really any interest or anybody left, then that's totally fine, and I might not have to worry about it too much, and we'll see from there if anything grows. But quick game just to start off. I'm playing as black down here. I'll always put myself on the bottom side, whichever is going on. So he leads off. Why is this not working? There we go. I've really started liking the French defense a lot lately. Can't really say why. I guess I just feel like I get to play. I feel like I'm playing as white, except the other side. Because of the way I get to do sort of like a Queen's Gambit, kind of throwing the D and C pawns up there really quick and kind of messing with the center right off the bat. So I guess I feel like I'm white a lot, even though I'm not. So I don't know. It's sound on defense. So I've been liking the French. Anyway, so he's pushing, and just I guess one aspect of things that I've been trying to focus on as well is, when you make moves, something is always going to be gained and something is always going to be lost. So he's giving himself additional defense on his D pawn, but he's also blocking off his knight's happiest square. So I would like to keep that there as long as I really could. That'll just further choke him out and slow him down. If he brings it out here, he's blocking in the bishop. So just some things that I want to kind of keep in mind, see how much I can really control my opponents as I keep progressing these games. And eventually I'll get to people that are just way better than me, and those will be totally different to look at and analyze, and hopefully be way more fun. So standard developing move, attacking this guy, but also blocking off possible checks that can maybe mess me up or whatever. Just standard move. And then he brings a bishop out to get further defense on this piece, which it doesn't really need it. But what I do notice is that this guy is now totally undefended because his bishop moved. So, like I said, I want to start attacking things like that, and I can now do that with the queen. Putting pressure on this guy. I guess it's also, in a way, putting even more pressure on here. So I've got 3 pieces going after this. He's got 3 pieces defending it. So it's quite the party over here. And once this guy falls, then this guy will be soon to follow. But it's kind of a 2-pronged attack, and now I'm attacking something that's totally undefended. And for whatever reason, I guess he didn't see it or ignored it, or thought that if he just went to attack my queen with a protected piece, that might be sufficient to scare me away. So sometimes, obviously, it's going to happen where I'm in a position and I want to see something happen, and then the opponent just blunders. And that's always kind of a bummer, because it makes it feel like, well, how good of an analysis, or what are we really going to learn if my opponent just isn't good and they just make blunders and mistakes? But on the other hand, I'm kind of struggling to accept the fact that at some point when you make good moves, you're going to get the rewards that you wanted, and that's kind of the point of making the good moves. I guess I've been looking at engines too much and always, oh, well, this is what they're going to do because that's the smart thing. Well, no, not everyone's going to make the engine play all the time. So on one hand, like, you want to be rewarded when you do the right thing, and on the other, it kind of sucks when they don't respond the right way. So what I should have done was obviously immediately take over that pawn, targeting the rook. There's nothing he can really do about stuff. He can block it off, but it's going to be kind of a hamper for him for quite a little bit. A bit of really invasive, and then these pawns and other options are still totally all going to be there. But instead, what I think actually happened was I was just playing so quick, and usually when this pawn gets taken in this kind of situation, you're just so quick to recapture with tempo with the bishop that I think I didn't even realize what was going on. So I make my own mistakes, which is perfectly fine. And then this is where he now realizes the threat and responds to it. But unfortunately, now it's a little bit too late. He probably just thought that his bishop is defended, and that's perfectly fine, but I've got a couple too many pieces. So there's a tough spot for him to be in. He probably should have just taken my bishop, because now I'm taking his, and I can easily follow up with my queen with check, be super, super invasive. This pawn is hanging for the knight as well. And I have a little bit of a decision to make. If I do take with the queen over here, he's got a couple of different options in terms of how to block it. And I figure if he does move the queen, we're going to end up just trading queens, and he's going to get one of his minor pieces over onto that square instead. And I'm not really going to have too much for all of my hard work, I suppose. I guess I'll be able to win this pawn as well after that, and I'll obviously be sitting quite pretty with all of the center pawns gone and things looking a little ugly, but I felt like I wanted more, because if I get my horse here and attacking these squares, that makes a queen on, what is this, e3, much more deadly. So I chose to move my horse over here first. I didn't really see a great way for him to defend this guy. Basically just pushing up his queen into something is really all he can do. But I will now have freedom to start moving my horses out, get my other bishop to the wrong square, sorry, get my other bishop out and start trying to work on what else can I do from here. And kind of see what else is available for me. So, but unfortunately, he just wanted to make a simple developing move. Maybe he thought that it'd be fine if I take, he can bring his queen out. It'll help develop more, defend this other piece, give him some extra time, no big deal. But at this point, it was one mistake too many for him. I can completely ignore this part, go in for the check. He'll block with the queen, but at that point, it's too late. My horse is now able to jump on in here, put a check. King has to move if you are checked by a horse, unless you can take it, which he cannot because the only piece that can is currently pinned. So he's got to move, but then that's going to end up being checkmate in 11 total moves, which is pretty freaking quick. So just a couple little mistakes is all it really takes on one end. I made one myself, but he didn't really particularly see it. So I just kind of want to break the ice a little bit in terms of how, hold on, there we go. In terms of how this stuff is supposed to look and supposed to go. Where's the extra arrows? There we go. See how the stats kind of look throughout the course of this game. So playing into the French, it doesn't like pushing the pawn, even though I feel like that's the most common thing people do. But the computer doesn't really seem to like it or think that that's very good, which is fine by me. So far everything here is playing as normal. It's okay if you pause the video and take a look at the stats of what other common moves are and things like that. The game itself, the computer thinks everything's fine and dandy. Everything's pretty standardized. A little bit of an unusual move with that, but it's not inherently going to lose you the game. I guess this kind of gives whatever that advantage is right back. But then, big mistake for him to do that, and you see the computer is telling me I should take this with a huge arrow and then take this with the small arrow. So I made the slight inaccuracy to do that with the wrong piece, and like it shows here, he should take it, but instead he played a far more detrimental move, and you see computer going from a mostly even game to you're going to be down a hell of a lot, why did you do that type of game. Continuing to take the pieces, and like we discussed earlier, I probably should be taking the pawn. Oh, this is interesting. It wants me to move this. Curious. Why does it want me to go to G6? Huh. So a lot of different things to look at. In the past, what we would do sometimes is look at why. Things like that might also be beneficial, but I just don't want this video to be too long. I'm hoping for like 20 minutes or less. So obviously this is where I chose to move the knight, which the computer doesn't think I should do at all. But that's what I did. Still seems like it's fine. I mean, I win a pawn, I keep my queen on the board, have a lot of pressure. I think I'm okay with it. But then just one blunder too many now, and checkmate will soon be following. He probably should stop it with the, actually he has to stop it with the bishop, but he's not going to, and then we see the checkmate in two. So a little bit of a quick game, just wanted to give an example, so there's some sort of substance and not just me talking about what I hope to do with more chess videos coming up soon. So there goes that one. And then here's a second game that I played. This time I'm down here on the bottom as white. And start with standard king's pawn. I don't actually even, okay, Scotch game. I was going to say I don't even know what this technically is called. I've never really played it before, but I've started doing it a lot more often. I'm not sure if it's necessarily good or bad or whatever. I don't give a crap. But it's something that I've been trying to do a lot more recently. So just because I guess in the fact of if they take, I can retake, and then I have a little bit of position. Usually you don't want to bring your queen out too early, but the main reason you don't want to is so that minor pieces can attack it. But at this point, if this knight has already traded away, it's not as easy to attack the queen that quickly anymore. So I feel like it's something I would like to at least be in that position a couple of times, see how I feel about it before I just play something boring like the Italian game instead of Scotch. So anyway, he decides to bring out the bishop to get additional pressure on this horse, and not quite sure, since I don't play this one too often, if I should go after his guy and take it. Because of my attack on the queen, he'll be forced to take his, or forced to whatever, recapture and return, which would free up this entire line. I could trade queens if I wanted and mess up his king side or mess up his castling. Um, put him in a little bit of a bind that way. I don't know if it's worth it. I kind of want to keep my pieces on the field if I can. So I decide just to develop myself, get some additional defense on it. If we trade these now, at least that way they're trading under my circumstance or my choice. God, this freaking fly! I got another fly. I'm 2 for 2 on killing flies during this video. After all the trades, at least it would leave me with the additional position in the board and him with less, as opposed to messing up his king. I don't know which is necessarily better or worse. You know, whatever. Things are going to happen. So he pushes his knight out, further developing move, pretty standardized things. And now he finally can't take it anymore. He has to capture pieces, and that's totally fine. So I'll capture with mine. Gives him a couple of things to think about. He's got one horse here. This guy's being attacked, but it is being defended, so no big deal with either of those. He wants to castle to open up this line for rook or queen, get his king in a little bit more safety. And I decide now that I can push my pawn, because his knight doesn't really have a whole lot of squares that it would like to go. Let's see, down here, yeah, down there, over there, over there, and over there. So as we can see, my queen's covering those two, my knight is covering that one, my knight is covering that one, this one he can't go to, those two he can't go to, this dude has one square, and it's a pretty inhibiting square if he wanted to go there whatsoever. That would be one of the most unhappy knights in the history of the world. It'll put him really far away, it'll be blocking in his own pieces that he just castled out, and then because of where this pawn is, guarding these two squares, okay, now this is way too many arrows. If his horse is there, my pawn is now blocking his two favorite squares to go after that point as well. So super unhappy knight. He can't even directly just take it because then I recapture. So that's why I wanted to put the additional pressure on him. And oops, there we go. Sorry, I hit the wrong key. So he decides to take the bishop, which doesn't change a whole lot in terms of how this is going to play out. His horse still doesn't. Yes, I call them horses, not knights. So I'm going to certainly get comments about that, but I don't really care. It certainly doesn't still have that many more options. I think it frees up this square. Otherwise, it's all basically the same. The queen is still going to take most of his. Holy crap, another fruit fly? What is going on? So it gives him one additional square for safety, I suppose. It's not particularly a good square, but it's also not particularly the worst square in the world, I suppose, either. So it's something. I don't really have a great, my bishop could go out here and attack it. And then he's kind of screwed a little bit. Maybe he brings his queen out to here or something like that. So at the end of the day, even after trading more pieces, he decided just to run away anyway instead of straining his knight out in the middle of nowhere. And now I'm kind of thinking, okay, so I've played well enough so far. I've got control of the center, I've got position, I've got more pieces out here, I'm closer to being developed, he's really blocked in. But at the same time, we've traded a couple of pieces, there's not really a whole lot I've got aimed or going on. My horse going over here, I'm not going to be able to fork anything anyway, because he's already castled, and this guy's right there, so that's nothing. This queen's not really aiming at anything beneficial right now, so even though it's out early and controlling space, there's nothing I can really do with it, other than it's limiting where he can move. So I need to start targeting some squares and trying to figure out how it is I want to proceed from here. I think my bishop on any one of these three squares will be good. Those two obviously attacking the king. This guy getting over here so that I can then try and go after a different flank. Perhaps it's not as much of my favorite move, but it's still not like it's a bad square by any means. It'll allow me to make plays elsewhere. I could actually even queenside castle from here, and then it'll give me a nice queen and rook battery. If I can just move something along with this bishop one way or the other, maybe it moves, then I can start dropping this pawn and capitalizing on it with the defense of the rook. So there's a couple different options, but I decided let's get the bishop out first. I'll attack one of his king pieces. It's on a nice little defense with this pawn. Bishops and pawns work really well together sitting like that. It does kind of ruin me queenside castling a little bit, but that's fine. I can just castle normally. I guess another benefit of doing a queenside castle would mean that I can then rush all of these pawns up here, including using my mouse properly, it would give me a good way to defend that pawn, because eventually he's going to try and kick it away with something. So queenside castle may have been the superior play. We'll see how things look and once the computer's done with it in a few minutes. So unfortunately, this is where it all falls downhill for him. One thing that I know I used to work on in the last series a lot was element of time and trying to be really efficient. I wanted every move to be purposeful. Like I said, I wanted to always be attacking something. I didn't want to move the same piece twice too early on in the game or something like that. Because the more efficient and the quicker you are, the more opportunities and the more space you'll have to do more things sooner than your opponent. So it looks like an innocent enough move. He wants to get his bishop out here, attack directly into the heart of my king, control some of the center squares a little bit, and that's totally fine. The problem is he just doesn't have time to do it. So there's not really anything else, I suppose, that he could be looking at. I mean, obviously his horse can't really move. His bishop is totally stuck for now. So what he really needs to do is start making some of this space, get rid of my pieces, or trade some of these pawns away that could give his horse a place to go, free up his bishop, start making some sort of counterattacks a little bit. And he just chose the wrong one to go to. So what I see now is that I finally have an opening to make some sort of attacks and finally accomplish something. Since I do have my bishop here targeting his nice king square, I can now threaten a checkmate in one, and he so happily has opened up a nice diagonal over to me for a free rook. So he can't possibly give up a free rook. He's got to move it to a nice safe square. He can't put his bishop out here either, because then I take the bishop. And if he does either one of those things on that side of the board, then he just loses the game instead because of checkmate. So his options basically are pushing these pawns to get in my line of sight. Or super clutch, he could even move the horse right back now at this point, which might look kind of weird, but it does defend this guy. And if I were to take it, let's actually just move those pieces out. If I were to take it, he'd be able to pin my queen to my king, and then there's nothing I can do about it. I have to take his rook, or I guess I could let him take my queen and then take it back. But at that point, I'm going to be... let's do it this way instead. No, let's not do it this way. Let's do it that way. At that point, I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble now. So he still has his queen, a rook, and a bishop. So we ignore, or if we cancel out the rook and the bishop, do a little bit of math. Basically a horse and a rook to a queen. Actually, no, he would have to do that. So then I guess I could take this guy, and then who knows. So this is where we'd be sitting on his turn at this point, I suppose. Which, who knows? Who knows which side is really stronger here? I guess I don't have any dark square diagonals, so maybe he just takes it. I'm not quite sure, but I would lose my queen for it, and it would be a little bit of a problem. So if he were to move the horse, though, that's when I just have the free rook instead. So he's just in an absolute world of hurt. There's nothing he can do, and sometimes that's all it takes. There's just one bad move. It's not even technically, I guess, a blunder. Like, there's no immediate loss, but he doesn't quite see it. He tries to block it any way he can and decides to lose the game instead. So really tough position to get in, but that is an example, I suppose, of a couple of things that I've wanted to try to identify and try and work on now as I've started playing chess again. Try and take advantage of the things that when my opponent moves something, it's now opening up new things at the same time that it's attacking things as well. So trying to see how can we develop and how can we proceed from there. So I want to take a look at what the computer feels about a couple of these moves. Right now everything's basically equal at this point. Ooh, computer doesn't like Scotch games, apparently. So maybe I shouldn't be learning and playing it. I don't know. I think it's fun. I like it for now, but I've only played a couple of games with it. Still basically even, so I like how it doesn't even suggest for the horse to take it, because then you're just giving up total control of the center, which is fine. Bishop moving out seems normal enough, as we can look at what the most popular moves are and their win ratios. Things still look pretty favorable for white, as long as I don't play whatever this move is. Instead I defend it, which is whatever, and more developing moves. Oh, no game found, so this has no longer ever existed on this website, apparently. Oh, hold on, wait a second. Okay, so when he did that, What happened here? What am I missing? Oh, okay. So at this point, instead of defending the pawn, if I take... Who knows what he takes? Well, let's just say he takes with that one. I win the bishop for free, because he has to respond to the queen threat from the horse first. Okay, cool. I totally missed that. Totally didn't even see that I had a free bishop. If he wants to go that route, I can do this first, and then take the bishop. I would lose the pawn. That'd be unfortunate, I suppose. Where would I want to hide to? I'd hide somewhere. I guess that's not too important, but totally had a free bishop and I didn't even see it. So it's another reason to look at these games, because even the games where they're over real quick in 12 moves and my opponent wasn't very good, there's obviously still things you can piece together and learn from it. So I decided to defend my piece and give up a free bishop instead. And he now wants to make some trades. Everything seems pretty standard, or even, I should say. When I say standard, I guess I really just mean even. Castles, and that's where I identified I can push the pawn, which the game doesn't even like. Oh yeah, because instead he could have just pinned me at the first point. So he didn't even have to worry about running the knight away, he could have just pinned it. It even says he can take it? I guess because whatever ends up going here is just going to get pinned by the rook. And then it's going to be difficult to defend, perhaps. You can start putting a lot of pressure on it with the pawn, with the rook, and then who knows what else after those guys move. So maybe that wasn't such a hot move. I thought it was great because it was really going to throw his knight into oblivion. But, curious. So that's good. Good to see, good to know. He opted to take the bishop. I took with queen, as you have to. Now it likes a little bit more in my favor. He doesn't, I guess, doesn't quite have the same amount of play. I have additional defense on this pawn with the queen being here, I suppose. Not quite as much there. Ooh, interesting. It likes that. Let's see why. It's curious. I don't really get it. I don't really get why it is suggesting... Well, maybe it doesn't say that it's good. That's just one of your 3 best options. Anyway, where were we? So he runs it back away. And... yeah, it favors... Oh, ooh, wow. Really? H4 or queenside castle? It likes either one of those. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, though, I think queenside castle was probably the more correct play. Get this pin away so I can actually use the stupid pawn, get this battery going, and then I can start heaving these guys down here. But anyway, I chose to develop the bishop, and that's where, yeah, you can see that. It goes from about a pawn down, a mostly even game, to GG just instantly. So I was able to capitalize on that properly. Yeah, it recommends throwing the horse out here first, and that's about all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. So, holy crap, 28 minutes. I talked way too much. I'm really sorry. This is supposed to just be a little introduction and then two quick checkmate videos. And hopefully I'll be able to get these out relatively often. I'll probably only be able to narrate once or twice a week, but hopefully I can do a couple videos during those times. And we'll get to see and analyze some more chess. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys want to see more. Let me know whatever it is that you're thinking. Hopefully you guys had a great Christmas. And good riddance 2018, eh? So take it easy, everybody. Catch you later. We'll see you soon. Peace.